Hi there, I'm Eric Endlich, and I'm thrilled to join you today. This is one of a long series of presentations from StreamableU. Go to streamableU.com to see additional ones. We have a great selection for you, including a lot of college-related topics and a number of test prep topics. So I'm going to share my screen now so we can get started. Today we're talking about college options and programs for students with learning differences. So that's students with ADHD, learning disabilities, autism or Asperger's, and dyslexia, other differences that students who may benefit from certain kinds of programs and options designed for them. So here's, I'm with Top College Consultants. Here's my email address. I specialize in working with students from these populations. I'm a clinical psychologist by training. I'm on the Learning Disorders and Neurodiversity Committee of the Independent Educational Consultants Association. I work with families to help their students figure out what kind of programs and colleges are best for them and help them through the process. And also special needs dad and have taught in colleges. So that's my son. Quick disclaimer, I have no connection to any of the colleges and no financial interest in any programs I'm talking about, so nobody's paying me to promote them. I just mentioned certain programs to give you examples of some of the options that are out there. And what I do when I work with families is try to find them the best fit for their students, which may or may not happen to be any of the ones here. I like this quote, "Your development has to go at its own pace. It just doesn't happen to be the usual pace." And that's from A Wrinkle in Time, the book, not the movie. So why are we talking about this topic? Well, the enrollment rate, so these are all figures from the National Longitudinal Transitional Study that say about 2/3 of students go on to programs after high school, whether or not they have learning differences. And while half of these students in four-year colleges graduate, only about 1/3 of students with learning differences do. So there's a big difference in terms of the college graduation rate. And so that's a big concern. In addition, only about 1/4 disclose their condition or their diagnosis in college. So most of them are going through college without ever being on the radar screen of the college. In addition, we've got to look at what happens after college, because certainly for parents, that's a big concern. What's going to happen after college and for students. And the employment rate is much lower for adults with learning differences. The earnings tend to be quite low for a lot of them. And the vast majority have no accommodations in the workplace. So just like they're not disclosing in college and getting accommodations that may help them, the vast majority are not getting any kind of accommodations at work. Now, some of them may not need accommodations at work, but if they do, it's good to know that they are available both in college and in the workplace. So in order to figure out, one of the first questions I try to figure out when working with the family is the student going to be ready for college at the end of high school? And here's one of the most succinct ways to think about that. A student needs to be able to independently figure out when they're struggling in any area. So that could be struggling with class, with a course. You know, I think I'm falling behind. I think I'm not really understanding this material well enough. I'm concerned about my grade on the last exam. They need to be on top of that independently, not because a parent is looking at their grades and saying, "Oh, what's this all about?" Secondly, they need to independently, and I just mentioned that classes or academics as an example. Same thing applies to other areas such as emotions. If you're starting to get depressed, you know, I'm having trouble getting out of bed in the morning. I'm not eating as much. I'm kind of losing interest in hanging out with my friends. You need to be able to independently figure that out so that you can then take the next step, which is to independently seek out services to address those issues. Maybe I should go to the counseling center at school. Maybe I need to talk to my professor, or go to the tutoring center and get some help with this course. And that means you need to be able to do that even if you run into obstacles. Oh, you called the number and it was busy. You went to the counseling center and it happened to be after hours and it was closed. You need to be able to persevere despite obstacles that you run into. And finally, you need to apply those supports that you've accessed. So you've gone to the tutoring center or what have you, you've spoken to the professor. Now you need to take what you learn and apply it so that you can succeed. If you can do all that, then you're probably ready for college. And thanks to Jake Weld from Mansfield Hall for that definition. Big difference between a high school and college. Parents who've been to college know this already, but this is an important thing to remind yourself of, or for students to realize that in high school, much of your time is already structured by people around you. You go to class for many hours a day. In college or university, it's kind of flipped. You're not in class that many hours a day, but you usually have quite a few hours that you need to do readings and assignments and projects at school, and therefore you need to develop that skill of managing your own time. And so if you're not good at time management, at initiating and following through, then that's going to be something you should be working on in high school and continuing to work on in college. What are some of the skills, college readiness skills? What are some of the things that students need to be able to do to thrive in college? To break it down a little bit more, well, certainly academic skills, like being able to keep track of assignments and finish your courses competently. Being aware of what you're good at and what does not come naturally to you, so that you can then seek out those resources to help you with the things that you struggle with. Being able to advocate for yourself, being able to set up appointments with a counselor, with a doctor, with a tutor, and to get yourself there on time, consistently. Being able to organize information, being able to organize your time, being able to manage money, all of those organizational pieces continue to get more important as you get older. Staying motivated, of course, to get up and go to class, and exercise and eat and do all the things you need to do. Managing your feelings. So things will happen in college that may be challenging. Maybe you get a disappointing grade. Maybe you ask someone out on a date and they don't want to go out with you. Maybe you lose a friend. Maybe you get sick. You need to be able to manage all the emotions, all the ups and downs that come along, or to get the help you need to be effective at managing your feelings. Whether that's anxiety, depression, anger, what have you. And of course, taking care of yourself, basic hygiene, eating regularly, doing your laundry, stuff like that. Moving on to accommodations, getting ready to apply to college. So although there are over 1,000 colleges that are test optional, if you are going to apply to schools where you need to have ACT or SAT scores, it's good to know that you may qualify for accommodations. Now, if those accommodations are already built into your plan in high school, that makes it a lot easier. So if you're on an IEP or a 504, that is a special education plan, and you need extra time on tests, for example, and that's just one type of testing accommodation, extra time, testing that's spaced out over a longer period of time, testing that's in a room where you will have fewer distractions. Those are different kinds of accommodations that students get. If that's written into your plan in high school, you're going to have an easier time getting that approved on a standardized test like the SAT or ACT. There's usually a person at your high school who's the contact person to help you get those accommodations. If you haven't had neuropsychological testing or educational testing by a neuropsychologist, you're often going to need to get that, get documentation that you have a specific diagnosis such as ADHD, dyslexia, learning disability. And that test report from the neuropsychologist should spell out what accommodations you need, that you need to be in a separate quiet space, or that you need time and a half, or what have you. And if you're going to go through this process of asking for accommodations on the ACT or SAT, make sure to start early, because you might be denied and you may have to go through the process and appeal, and it may take longer than you think. And as I said before, lots of schools are test optional, so even if you're not happy with your test scores, even if you feel like they don't really reflect your capability, there's plenty of schools out there. There's, you know, about 50 colleges went test optional this year alone. So there's more and more as time goes on. We'll have plenty of options, whether or not you're strong in that department of standardized testing. When you get to college, you can get accommodations there as well, including testing accommodations. One of the things that students and families struggle with sometimes is, do I disclose that I have this diagnosis? And if so, when do I disclose? Do I disclose at the time I'm applying to college, or do I disclose after I've gotten in? That is a whole other topic that I'm not going to get into now, because I could spend the whole time just talking about that question, but I'm happy to work with families and think that through on a case-by-case basis. The main thing to realize is that whatever accommodations you had in high school, whatever plan you had, that pretty much disappears when you go off to college. It doesn't carry over. You're a clean slate when you show up at college. If you don't disclose your diagnosis, if you don't go to the disability center and ask for accommodations and provide documentation, then you're going to be treated like every other student. And if that's what you want, and if you're going to thrive under those conditions, that's perfectly fine. But if you need accommodations on testing or in class, you need a note taker, you need other sorts of accommodations, and there's many different kinds of accommodations people seek in college. Just to give you one example that's totally different, sometimes getting a single room in a residence hall could be an accommodation. That's just one example of something that's quite different. You're probably going to need to have neuropsychological testing within the past 3 years that spells out your diagnosis, your disability, and the accommodations you need. When you're applying to college, you may want to do some research on what these colleges can offer in the way of accommodations and services, and what requirements do I need if I'm going to seek these accommodations. And generally, the place to go to get that is the disability center at the college. And those go by different names: student disability services, student accessibility, lots of different names for them. But every college has one. And every college, by federal law, will provide accommodation. So if you go to a disability center, or you ask a college when you're on a tour, hey, can you accommodate these needs that I have because I have this diagnosis? Colleges are typically going to talk about that, and talk about it in a positive way, and say, oh yes, absolutely, we provide this accommodation and that accommodation. All you have to do is show up at the disability center with your documentation, and we're happy to work with you. And that'll sound really good, but just keep in mind that's standard across all colleges. That's the bare minimum. We're going to talk about stuff that goes beyond that. So there's a whole bunch of different paths that students can go down. So not everyone goes to a college leading to a degree. For example, maybe you go into a trade, such as becoming an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter. Maybe you go into a healthcare field where you don't need a college degree, like becoming a medical assistant or a EKG tech. Or maybe you go into an IT field where you just need to get a certificate, learn some programming languages or IT skills, and you get a job straight from that without going to college. Perfectly fine. That's a perfectly valid option. There are non-degree certificate programs for students with intellectual disabilities. Not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that, but it's good to know that those are there, and many of those take place in a college setting, but those are for students who aren't really capable of college level work and aren't really going to seek a degree. And again, I'll talk about those a little bit later on. Transition program to get ready for college, maybe a student who's not quite there yet. Going to a college and getting some supports from outside the college to be able to succeed. Going to college where you can get supports, a specialized program at the college, or going to a college that's completely specialized for students with learning differences. Those are some of the different options that are out there, and I'm going to go into more detail on them. So vocational programs in college settings, these would be like some of the non-degree programs, not student who's not seeking a bachelor's or an associate's degree. If a student has an intellectual disability, a lower IQ, mostly is focusing on getting employment training, but wants to be in a college and have that college-like experience of going to class, being around other college students, this can be a good option. And here's just one example. It's called Project Forward. It's on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. It's been around for a long time. And students learn a variety of different vocational skills. And typically students go for 2 years to this program, sometimes 1 year, sometimes longer, but nominally it's a 2-year program. And these are some of the different areas that they get experience with. So you do have some classroom time, but a lot of it is hands-on experience doing a variety of different things of interest. And there are programs like this all over the country. This is just one example. Second type of program would be along the lines of what I was just describing, but one that has a residential component where the student lives on the college. And this is going to be a bit more comprehensive, more of a life skills program, because the students there 24/7, they can also learn cooking skills and living with a roommate skills and social skills. So these are going to be more expensive, but you'll also be able to get more wraparound services. Typically, these are 2-year programs. This example threshold program at Lesley is a 2-year program, but there are opportunities after the 2 years. Students can take regular courses at Lesley University, and these are students who have finished high school but didn't necessarily get a diploma, may have just completed high school without actually earning the diploma. Typically students who got special education services while in high school and got a lower test on an IQ or intelligence test, a lower score. So not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but as I said, students can take some Lesley courses, they can get involved in campus life, clubs and teams, they live in the residence hall. So they get that college-like experience, but they're not earning a degree, so it's much less demanding. And they have some a good track record in terms of employment, independent living, and even relationships for students who've been through this program. Moving on to gap year or college readiness programs. These could be just a summer program before starting college, or it could be a whole year before college. And this is an opportunity to get some life skills, get some organizational skills, college readiness skills, so that when they start college, they're going to be more successful. And here's one example, college internship program. It's got 5 locations throughout the country, including 2 in California, coast to coast, Massachusetts, Florida. There's a focus on living independently in apartment settings. There is a career academic track. You can go just for a summer program or for a full year. And they have supports for families as well as the students. Cover a lot of different life skills areas. Depending on which location you are at, you may have more strengths in one area or another. The one in Massachusetts, for example, has lots of creative arts opportunities. As I mentioned, they have a summer program, 2-week program, just to give you a taste of college life and start to get more prepared. for college. There's a career track as well as a college track. Landmark College in Vermont also has summer programs. They have quite a few different ones. Every year it seems like they're adding different ones. And if you go to their website, you can see some of the different opportunities they have. So they've got programs for students who are still in high school. They've got programs for students who have finished high school, who are now ready for college. And they will help with executive functioning, organizational skills, time management, as well as some of the other aspects of college readiness. Another gap year program called Dynamy. And this is not in a college setting, but it is near colleges. It's an apartment living opportunity with lots of internship opportunities. And there is an optional course for college credit there. I believe students can take college courses while they're in the Dynamy program. Internships in many different fields, so lots of opportunities. It's in Worcester, Massachusetts, so many students get their internships in Worcester. Some of them actually go to Boston. Another gap year program just for something different. This one's actually located in Puerto Rico. It's for young men, and a lot of it is focused on helping men become more self-confident and kind of thriving as adults. And they learn Spanish too while they're there. So we talked a little about gap year program. Let's move on to going to college and getting supports while you're in college so that you can thrive and succeed. I'm going to talk about a few different examples of how that can be done. So Mansfield Hall is a kind of unique program where students live at Mansfield Hall, sort of like a dorm. It's a house. We've got several locations throughout the country. And they attend a local college. So they're in college, they're living in a dorm-like setting, but that dorm, that hall, is a place where they get a lot of help with academic skills, executive function skills, social skills, independent living, lots of guidance that they would not otherwise get just being in a regular residence hall. And so, of course, there's the paying for college and paying for Mansfield Hall on top of that. And it's in Vermont, Wisconsin, and Oregon. Eugene, Oregon doesn't happen to be on my slide, but that is their newest location. And so, for example, if you're at Mansfield Hall in Burlington, Vermont, you can be taking courses at any of the local colleges, including UVM, St. Michael's, Champlain College. Another way to get supports outside of the college is to hire a company that provides executive function or academic skills coaching, things like time management, helping with procrastination, getting assignments done, and that sort of thing. Beyond Booksmart is an example of a company that does that. And they can do that they can do that in person or remotely from any location. So you could be going to any college and hiring a coach outside to help you with these things. And the advantage, of course, of hiring someone externally is you can schedule that at a time that's convenient for you. You don't have to travel anywhere. It's private. And it's a very individualized service. New Frontiers in Learning, a New York-based company, does similar sorts of work with the executive function. They also have a summer college readiness program in New York. Eastern Seals of Massachusetts has a program where they have a mentor that goes with the student to college. So that's a slightly different model. And that person who goes with the student is another young person who can kind of blend in and go to class with them, but help them manage the workload and adjust to college. And then Focus Collegiate is currently a Boston area organization that hopes to spread nationwide, and they have a summer boot camp, and students who go to any of the colleges in the Boston area can hire Focus Collegiate to help them thrive in college with lots of one-to-one support, managing whether it's the emotions or the executive function, academic challenges. And there are other companies that do that as well. Those are just some examples. Now let's talk about more robust programs that you can get at the college that are actually built into the college. And those actually happen to be pictures. All these are pictures that I've taken on college tours. That's at Drexel University, that's Fairleigh Dickinson. And so a comprehensive program typically is going to be an additional cost above and beyond the cost of going to that college. You're going to get more coordinated service because it's located, it's part of the college. It's going to be more coordinated with your courses and residence life and so on. So it's a way to get services that are more streamlined. Sometimes there's a component of social skills, not always. And typically you can get support the whole time you're in college. So one fairly well-known example is Curry College in Milton, Massachusetts, and their program is called PAL, the Program for Advancement of Learning. Curry is a small college where students already get pretty individual attention because of the size of the college and small classes. As with any degree-seeking program, anytime you're in a program and you're seeking a degree, associates or bachelor's, the curriculum is not modified. In other words, you, the student, have to finish the same assignments as anybody else, even if you have ADHD or learning disability or autism. But you can get accommodations and supports to help you do that. So, but the bar is not lowered. Sometimes that will happen in high school, but in college, everyone has to do the same assignments. And many students who pay for the PAL program just use it for that first year, and then they're off and running after freshman year. It's been around for a long time. It's comprehensive. They work with students with a variety of different diagnoses. And about a quarter of all students who go to Curry use this program. So there's no stigma because it's very commonly used by a lot of students. And that is an actual photo of the building, inside the building where PAL is located. It's a really nice setting. So as I said, it's used by a lot of students with a wide range of backgrounds, and typically get 2.5 hours a week. The mentor that they work with is typically actually a professor at Curry. So that's another thing that makes it a little bit different. But they have all kinds of supports. They're a very robust program at an additional cost. And there are a number of other colleges around the country that have that and have programs like that. And I'm happy to work with students to figure out, and with families to figure out, do they need a program like that? And if so, where would they fit in best? And often there's lots of factors to consider, like your budget and where you want to live and so on. Finally, we're going to talk about a specialized college. That is a college that is exclusively for students with learning differences. Now, I mentioned Landmark earlier. That's actually a photo of Landmark College. Landmark College and Beacon College are the only two colleges in the US. Landmark's in Vermont, Beacon's in Florida. They're small colleges. Being smaller colleges, it means smaller, an easier campus to navigate, but it also means there are not as many majors available. But all of the instructors, all of the staff at these colleges, that's all they do. So they know how to work with these students, and they're going to be more accommodating and understanding. So when the whole college is oriented towards serving this population, you can be confident that the professors are going to understand how to teach and work with students with these challenges. And one of the approaches or philosophies that Beacon has is to try to fade those supports over time so that as you get further along in your college career, you have fewer and fewer supports, and you're more and more able to self-advocate and manage without the supports. And Beacon has good numbers to back up the effectiveness of their approach. That is a high 4-year graduation rate. That is higher than the national rate for all students, never mind students with learning differences. And if you remember, we talked earlier about the relatively low employment rates. This is a high employment rate for students with learning differences. And of course, they have great opportunities for internships, work experience, and other hands-on experiences. So in summary, it's really important to figure out how ready am I or my student for college? What additional skills do I need to develop in order to be ready for college? Do I need more time? Do we need to go to a college readiness program? Certainly becoming better and better at self-advocating, identifying your needs, pursuing the resources on your own without a teacher, counselor, or parent doing that for you. The more students can do that their own, the more they are ready for college. And then depending on what challenges they have, it's important to figure out, do I just need a few accommodations that I can get in any college, like time and a half on test? Can I go to any college and get my needs met? Do I need to go to an alternative to college because I'm not going to be able to get a college degree? Do I need another year before I'm ready for college? Or do I need to go to a college that has really robust supports that can help me thrive? If you want to work with me, here's my contact information. I love working with teens and families. And here's a few resources. I do have on my website, topcolleges.com, a list of colleges that are autism friendly, but many of those colleges are also friendly for students with ADHD, learning disabilities, and other diagnoses. And you can find some good college readiness checklists online. This is an example of one that put out by Landmark. And go to streamableu.com for lots of other great seminars. It's been great sharing this time with you, and good luck.